my name is Kathy Lynch. I'm the Westford Republican Town Committee Chairwoman. I am the Republican State Committeewoman for the 1st Middlesex District, and I'm here as a Second Opinion show host. And I'm introducing now Dean Tran, who is running for the 3rd Congressional District. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you very much for having me, Kathy, and thank you for the warm welcome to Westford.
So good to have you here today. Tell us, or tell the audience, what you're running for and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you to the audience for tuning in. My name is Dean Tran. My political career began serving 4 years on the planning board in the city of Fitchburg, and then I moved on to serving 6 terms on the city council, and then 2 terms in the state senate. I'm from the city of Fitchburg. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Carrie, and she and I have 4 children, all public school educated. I was a product of the public school system from the city of Fitchburg, and then I went on to acquiring my bachelor's degree from Brandeis University. I spent the last 24 years in the private sector, and now I am running for the 3rd Congressional District as a candidate for the U.S. Congress.
Thank you so much. And for the audience, I'd like to read the towns that this covers because it's a long list. And if your town is mentioned, or your city, Dean will be on the ballot. Okay, so here we go. So you will be covering Acton, Ashburnham, Ashby, Ayer, Berlin, and part of Billerica, Bolton, Boxborough, Carlisle, Chelmsford, Clinton, Concord, Dracut, Dunstable, Fitchburg, Gardner, Groton, Harvard, Haverhill, Hudson, Lancaster, Lawrence, Littleton, Lowell, Lunenburg, Marlborough, Methuen, Pepperell, Shirley, Stowe, Townsend, Tingsboro, Westford, part of Westminster, and Winchendon. Now that's a lot of towns to cover.
Yes.
So tell me how it's going on the campaign trail out there.
Well, if people weren't paying attention to the numbers of towns and cities that you just mentioned, there are 35 towns and cities in the district. And to remember those towns and cities, I usually tell people it's almost the whole entire north central Massachusetts. It ranges from Winchendon from the south, from the west, down to Marlborough, which is the south, and all the way up to Methuen and all the towns and cities in between. Our campaign is going great, and there is incredible momentum and enthusiasm behind our campaign. When I first entered this race, I had some expectations, but now those expectations have exceeded what I anticipated for this campaign. People in the district, throughout this district, and matter of fact, a lot of people across the state is very excited for this race. And with my candidacy, with my strong staff behind me, we've made this congressional race probably the most competitive congressional race in this state in over probably 45 years, Kathy.
Wow. Thank you so much for that enthusiasm, because I think it's important for a race like this. You have an incumbent, and I'm going to name this person because some people know her, Lori Trahan, and that is your opponent. So this is great to see so much enthusiasm for you right now. Now, why did you choose to run as a Republican?
Well, good question, and thank you for that question. I don't consider myself as a Republican. I don't consider myself as a conservative, and I'm definitely not a Democrat. I consider myself as a common sense individual, and if there was a common sense political party, I would be the first one in line to be part of that party, because I believe many of the things that are aligned with the Republican Party platform, and that is accountability, hard work, responsibility, parental rights, a strong economy, a safe country, and our constitutional freedoms. And a lot of those things that I believe in are those that are part of the Republican platform. And so, You know, not only am I a common sense individual, I'm a registered Republican, is because of those things.
Now, it's interesting because you said that you don't consider yourself Republican or Democrat, or you're a common sense candidate. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, I am.
Okay, okay. But you just named all the Republican principles that you're really happy about.
Correct, and that's the reason why I am a registered Republican.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for running on the Republican ticket, because you know I'm a Republican.
Yes, I
And
do.
I stand for those things that you just mentioned too. Really important. That's what's on my mind lately.
And those are just common sense issues, right? Those are common sense principles, and everyone should be holding those principles, but unfortunately, not everyone does.
Oh, it does seem like the left and the Democrats are going so far to the left that it's enraging a lot of Republicans. I mean, they're just like, where's our freedom going? Where is our safety? Where, you know, what happened to the Constitution?
Right. The move to the far left has pretty much alienated a lot of Democrats too. You know, I met a Democrat this past weekend along my campaign trail, and he said to me, Dean, I was a long life Democrat, but I am no longer a Democrat. I am no longer voting for a Democrat because there's no such thing as a Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has been taken over by a term that he used, radicals.
I also heard today that Tulsi Gabbard has changed from Democrat to Republican.
I read that too, and she pretty much said the same thing that one of my constituents said to me this past weekend. The party has left her, and now she has unenrolled from that party.
Well, it seems like when she was out on the road, she was focusing on the truth and getting accurate information about it, and she seemed to have integrity. You know, so that's what we're looking for in the Republican Party.
Right. The problem with the society that we live in now, Kathy, is that those who have taken over the Democrat Party are there to take away people's freedoms. And the vast majority of people in this country cherish those freedoms. And so, you know, you're going to see a drastic change in this election coming up. And the only solution to the problems that we're seeing now is to vote Republicans. And a lot of Democrats are shifting over to make that happen.
There's a lot of division that I find that's coming from the left. There's this kind of like, let's divide everyone up, put them into categories, get them fighting against each other. Do you see that?
Well, you know, I do see that division happening in the Democrat Party, and it's basically just two groups. One group cherish the freedoms that I just talked about, and that group also cherished the common sense that I talked about earlier. And then you have the second group that just want to trample and erode those freedoms from people. And that same group want to force their opinions and views onto others. And that's what we're seeing happening in the Democrat Party. And luckily for us, that division is going to propel the Republican Party in this upcoming election.
Now tell me, a lot of candidates have three main issues. So what are your three main issues?
Well, you know, there are so many issues right now that are affecting us as a person, as a society, and as a country. And to me, when I'm running this race to become the next U.S. Congressman and the first Asian American to represent this state in the U.S. Congress, I'm looking forward to solving the following issues. To make our country safe. People should not worry about crimes and drugs when they're walking down their neighborhood, their community. I want a strong economy, Kathy. An economy that has an abundance of jobs for people to be able to go to work, provide for their families, put food on the table, and pay their bills. I want a future for this country that is based on freedoms. I want people's parental rights preserved, and I want to protect our constitutional rights And last but not least, I want a government that is accountable to the people. And if you are voting for a bill that initiated the inflation that caused so much hardship on people, you should be held accountable. So those are the 4 issues that I'm running on, and I'm going to work hard with my colleagues to make those issues stand out and be solved in the next 2 years in the Congress.
Tell me, when you're walking around and knocking doors and talking to people at events, what do they say to you? What are their concerns?
Kitchen table issues. Those are the issues that are most impacting them and their families on a daily basis. They said to me, Dean, we need to solve these things. And I completely agree with them. We have to reduce the inflation because people are having a hard time, Kathy. You know, the inflation is causing high oil, gas, and electric rates. People are having a hard time paying for their grocery bills. We have to address inflation. We have to lower the oil, gas, and electric costs. We have to make sure that the economy is strong. We have to put America first, not China, because that's a big problem nowadays. And another problem, we have to make sure that we put Americans first, not illegal immigrants. And there are several other issues that people brought up to me along my campaigning. Public safety. They're seeing an increase in crime. They're seeing an increase in drugs. And these are all shown in the polls. Data does not lie. And these are happening under the watch of the Democrats. You know, they want to make sure that their family is safe, support law enforcement, and stop this nonsense about defunding our police. Parents, they said, Dean, I want my parental rights back. The parental rights that the Democrats have taken away from us. They want those. And then when I'm talking to people who are immigrants and refugees to this country like I am, they said, Dean, we have to protect the constitutional freedoms. The freedoms that we came over here for, the freedoms that you came over here for. You have to be our voice. And I will do all those things for them because those are the issues that are impacting them on a daily basis when they sit down at the kitchen table talking to their families and worried about.
You really said a mouthful there. I mean, that is a lot of stuff that I see out in the public as well.
Those 64%, are a lot of issues.
You hear 64% energy costs, gas prices going up, your heating in Massachusetts is going to go up this winter, the way we're going.
And we're seeing gas prices on their way back up. The national grid that you're talking about announced a 64% increase in the electric rate. Unitil, which provides service to almost half of the north central Massachusetts in this district, expressed that they will increase the rate by 160%. So there are going to be hardship on a lot of people when this winter comes, especially those who are on fixed income, the elderly, you know, the poor, the low income. Those are the people that the current Democrat Party has left behind.
So it's interesting dynamic out there. The more dependent people get and the more poor they get, the more they will rely on the government to solve their problems. And that's a tactic that the Democrats use to try to get everyone dependent on them, and so that they will vote Democrat. Another tactic is to let them in over the borders without even checking them or vetting them. So they promise them free things, and now they'll get votes. So we're on to this, and I think the American public and the people in Massachusetts are waking up to this, and they're seeing, you know, this is wrong because we're getting poorer as a culture, and we're not safer. We're seeing increases in prices and now welfare and benefits from the government. So we see what's going on. And I think that you're voicing a lot of the concerns of the parents, you know, the parental rights. It's not the public school raising our children. As a parent, I want to have my values instilled in them. But the government wants to, or the government schools, they want to say, no, we're going to teach you your values. So it sounds like that's a lot about what you're hearing, and it really resonates with the people.
Oh, absolutely. The concerns that you just mentioned, as well as the concerns that I conveyed to you from the constituents in the district, those concerns derived from what you just said. The Democrat Party has created dependencies, and those dependencies in today's society equates to slavery back in the old days prior to the civil rights. They want to control people through certain programs and entitlements. Once people get addicted to these things, they can't get away from them, and they can't be self-reliant, so they depend on the government, and therefore continue to vote the same way that they have been voting. And that's the whole entire reason behind some of these things that have been created by the Democrat Party.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you're completely aware. I think about people who are, they're addicted, you say. It's easier not to work, right? It's easier to get a paycheck when you sit at home. But the Republican Party is more about getting people employed, so they have self-respect and they're proud of themselves. They're doing something that benefits society. They have a job. They can rely on themselves, right? And that's more of what you're looking for with the better economy and getting people more jobs.
Well, absolutely. When there are jobs and when people are employed, they can think on their own. They can provide for their families. They don't have to depend on the government. And when those things happen, there's a tendency to have a smaller government. When you have a smaller government, there's less intrusion on people's freedoms. And when there's a less intrusion on people's freedoms, then there's less control from the Democrat Party. And hence, that's what they don't want.
All right, so tell me about, they'll come back and they'll say, well, what about the people, the poor people or the disabled people that can't get a job, they can't work, whatever. There's always that for us through the party too, right? But it's just limited. Do you have anything else to say?
Oh, we live in a society that is very sympathetic to those in need. And there will always be programs to help those who need help. Statistics and data don't lie. And those statistics and data show that the Republican Party is more sympathetic to those who need help than the Democrat Party. So we, as a Republican and as a Republican Party, we will never let anybody behind or leave anybody behind. If they need help, we will be there. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that people are able to provide for themselves first.
I remember seeing a poll that showed that the Republican Party was actually more generous than the Democrat Party. So it kind of speaks to what you said. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what distinguishes you between your opponent from her.
So my opponent and I are very different people. Everything from our upbringing, our background, to our political stances. Both she and I have a record of serving in the public sector. But I think that's where it stops. I have a very strong record of serving and working for the people. I have a very strong record of being the voice of the people and always putting the people first. I promised the people that I would leave the private sector where I was very successful when I was elected to the state senate, and I did. My salary in the state senate was cut in half, more than half, when I left the private sector to serve as a state senator. You can't say the same thing about my opponent. I promise people that when I become the next U.S. congressman, to serve them in the U.S. Congress, that they will have a voice, and that I will commit to them my time and effort to serve and work for them, and not for the party, and not for the government.
Work for the people. So you think that she does not work for the people? Is that the distinguishing factor you're talking about?
That is one of the many distinguishing factors. And we've seen that. You know, when I'm traversing across the district, I hear a lot from the constituents who have said to me, we have no voice. We don't see her representing us. We see her more representing her party and the government. And you know, when you do that, that means that you want big government. And when you have a big government, that's more of your freedoms are taken away and more government control. And that's not the kind of candidate, nor is that the kind of congressman that I will be.
Well, let's hear a few examples maybe of what you'd like to bring to the job once you're in there to just really start improving things.
Mm-hmm. Well, most importantly, when I'm your next U.S. congressman, you will have a voice. You will be able to contact me directly, whether through email, telephone, call, or social media. I will get back to you, and I will make sure that your concerns and issues are addressed as my constituent. I will make sure that we address the inflation, because that is such a big issue right now that is creating havoc on people's lives. And when I see people saying to me, Dean, I can't provide for my family, that I have to choose between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas, now that I have to choose between eating and heating, that brings tremendous emotion to me.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that that is the first priority that I will be solving with my colleagues. And of course, we have to make this country energy independent, because once this country becomes energy independent, we're going to see lower oil prices, lower gas prices, lower electric rates. So many of the things that I stand for, many of the issues that I will be working on, I can guarantee you that my opponent will not be working on, because she has been in there for over 4 years, and she has done nothing to address these issues. As a matter of fact, she has done quite a lot to make these issues come to fruition.
Has she done anything for immigration to improve that situation? Because it's a real mess at the border.
Yeah, she has done quite a lot in that area too, in respect to rubber stamping everything that Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi wanted her to vote on. And by rubber stamping those bills and policies, she has made our country less safe. And we know that the Biden regime has allowed close to 4 million illegal immigrants into this country, and transporting them and releasing them in our communities without our knowledge. So, she has completely set aside public safety. She's part of the squad, the most radical group in the U.S. Congress that has promoted defunding our police and, trampled on law enforcement. So she's part of that group. And I can guarantee you that the stances that I stand will oppose everything that she has done.
Yeah, you think about the immigrants that I've spoken to, they come here legally, and they're very upset because they're like, it's not fair that some people will just walk right over, and you don't know if they're bringing drugs or weapons or anything. You don't know if they're really for America or for communism or something like that they're going to bring in. You don't know that. But they're resentful because they went through a whole process where, it was lengthy and they got to know what America's about. And that has not been improved yet.
Well, Kathy, as you know my background, I'm a refugee as well as an immigrant to this country.
Yeah.
I spent my toddler years in one of the roughest refugee camps in the world, waiting for our green cards to be approved. and to come over to this country. This country is a country of immigrants. You know, we believe in allowing people the opportunity to come over to this country to live the American dream. But there's a process in place. We have laws that need to be enforced. And that is not happening under Biden, Pelosi, and my opponent. You know, they have promoted illegal immigration, which has caused a spike in crime, which has caused a record high drugs entering into this country. And now we're seeing close to 300 lives lost on a daily basis due to fentanyl. So, you know, instead of promoting the process to become U.S. citizens, even if you're living in this country illegally, they're not doing that. They are proponent of open borders, allowing anybody to come into this country, doing whatever they please, and bringing whatever they want to bring into this country.
Well, thank you. You've covered so much about what you're about and how you're different from your opponent. Here's your sign that we're starting to see all over the district, the congressional district. Tell people how they can get in touch with your campaign.
Well, it's very easy to get in touch with me. People can get in touch with me through my website, which is www.deantran.com. My Facebook page is very active. It's Dean Tran for Congress. I have a Twitter handle, which is also active. It's DTranMA3. And my email address is info@deantran.com, as well as my telephone number is 978-547-8726. And I promise you that once you get in contact with me, you will receive a response, which is something that I hear quite often from my constituents that they don't get from my opponent.
I think it's a real help when you can be approachable and reachable. So that's great to have your contact information. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I'll leave you with this, and it's very simple. And that is, I am the only candidate in this race that will protect your life, liberty, and happiness. And I would be honored to have your vote on November 8th.
Dean, I want to thank you for your time today. It was nice to get to know more about you and your campaign. And to the viewers, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Lynch with the Second Opinion Show. And remember, if you'd like another viewpoint, then get a second opinion.
Thank you, Kathy.